I'm Shahar Azani, and in the news, a new Middle East is coming together with a signing ceremony this week at the White House of an agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. What does it all mean? And where do the Palestinians fit in? To discuss this and more, it's a pleasure for me to welcome to JBS, all the way from Netanya in Israel, IDF's Major General Reserve, Eitan Dangot. Eitan Dangot is president of the Association of Oil and Gas Exploration Industries in Israel. Between 2009 and 2014, he was the coordinator of the Israeli government activities in the territories, which is the main liaison with the Palestinians. Prior to that, he served as the military secretary to 3 Israeli ministers of defense, Lieutenant General Reserve Shaul Mufaz, member of Knesset Amir Peretz, and Lieutenant General Reserve Ehud Barak. He served in various capacities in the IDF for over 3 decades. And like me, he's a graduate of Bar Ilan University. Eitan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shahar. It's a pleasure for me. And I'm very happy to share with you my opinions, knowledge, and I hope I will manage to add some of these issues to such a very important Middle East that we are now facing.
Thank you, Eitan. And as you can imagine, your expertise is highly needed at this time. But first of all, before we touch on the geopolitics, I'd like to ask you, we hear that Israel is the first country in the world to go back to a quarantine policy during this COVID-19 era at the end of this week. What does it look like from there? How are you feeling? How is the general feeling?
I think that when we are going to do it, especially at the evening of our Jewish New Year, it as a symbol for something. We are not hiding. The situation in Israel from how it's going to develop from the healthy is not so good. I think the health now is the major thing that we have to overcome. And I hope that we have to go for it bottom up. I mean that the population will fulfill the orders, and above all, also the policy will be balanced, so we will succeed, as we say, Be'ezrat Hashem, to go on and to continue with such a beautiful country for the new year in a new and future for the future of Israel.
Amen and amen, Eitan. And we wish you and yours and everybody in Israel the very best of health. And speaking about Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, it's quite encouraging to look at what's happening this week in the White House, the agreements that are signed between Israel and, of course, the newest members of this Middle East Peace Club. Maybe share with us your view as to how important are these agreements for Israel and the region with the United Arab Emirates and, of course, with the latest news that emerge about Bahrain.
Shahar, I think that if we make this interview without the impact of the corona, it will be a historical moment for Israel with a lot of opportunities, not even to Israel and for the region. The fact that Corona is here, we will make it balanced. It's the important thing, we talked about it. But on the other hand, the development at the Gulf with the Arab countries for us is something that we have to be for it, I think, with a lot of appreciation for this kind of achievements that has been done by Israeli Prime Minister and the President of the United States, because it's a game changer to the Middle East. It's a game changer to the problems around us. But I would be very careful because we have to wait also for November. I mean, the results of the election in the United States will have a lot of depth weight for the continuing of this kind of process. Meanwhile, I think we had some great achievements for the Israeli security, for the Israeli economy. First, we succeed, first time from the Israeli establishment as a country, to break the block of the, let's say, to prevent any kind of developing of relation with Arab country because of the Palestinian problem. I think by these 2 decisions by the UAE and Bahrain, I think it brings to a new time of thinking that The problem, meanwhile, of Iran threat to the Middle East create a block of interest between Israel and Arab countries. It doesn't matter that the Palestinians are not something or a problem that we have to solve. It means that everybody has to calculate its way in this junction in a new way. So by this kind of step, for Israel, great achievements, for economy, for the first steps that will be done. Secondly, I think the fact that Israel is presenting in the main two countries from the Gulf that are close to Iran brought Iran to be isolated, like Iran now in Syria in the Golan Heights. We create the opposite picture from the Gulf. I don't see Iranian moving in their chairs now very, let's say, easy by the fact that they know that Israeli representatives are making economy business and creating developed kind of context with such two countries from the northeast of the southeast of Tehran and from the southwest of Tehran. And I hope that these two countries are the continuating to the major Arab countries in the Gulf, I mean Saudi Arabia. And for Iran, it's something that they didn't accept. I think it's creating a new opportunities. On the other end, also for the Palestinians, the main backwind that the Palestinians got all over the years was the taboo and the way that they know wherever they do something, refuse to move up with all the peace process, they have the support of the Arab League. Few days ago, ministers of foreign affairs from Arab countries came to Ramallah and refused to condemn the peace agreement, and it means like they support it. And Abu Mazen, especially the PA, let's go later about the Hamas, will have to look again on their future. So when you look at it, it's a win-win situation to everybody, but above all, the umbrella of the United States, it's a big question mark, what will be after November. So now I think Iran, on the other end, the PA, the Palestinians, are waiting for the results of November to see how things go on. And I hope after it will become other Arab countries. If we are now talking to the east side of Israel for the Gulf, let's look for the west side of the Israeli area to the north part of Africa to find out the first Arab country that will also go on in this way. And I hope by this we can achieve a very close block against the main threat in our area. It's the Shiite wing, led by Iran in a rule way, in a terror way, and by such a thing, combination of joint venture of economy, joint venture of policy. Already we are there with Egypt and Jordan, and with small countries that already had some kind of contact. When you talk about it loudly, it means not anymore Israel is a country that is not recognized, and it means a new opportunities to the Middle East with something that we have to wait. I said it on the third time, what will be the continuing after November.
Some of the critics of this process claim that there is nothing new about these agreements, that Israel has always had relationships with Bahrain and United Arab Emirates. Israel had an interest office, and as if there is no great news in these agreements. Do you agree with this assessment?
No, and I will explain why. First of all, this kind of context that has been created, I think gave the main or the second floor to what we are doing today. But the moment that Israeli El Al can fly directly to the Gulf countries, that the flag of Israel is something that Arab average civilian on the UAE or in Bahrain can look about it as a general country that is coming. the way that Saudi Arabia opened its skies to cross of Israeli airlines above it, the way that Israelis can come with Israeli passport to this country, it's more than a symbol. It's something that bring a new way of opportunities to the peace of the Middle East and to strengthen the power of these moderate Arab countries, Sunnis countries, I mean. Bahrain is a very sensitive country because the majority of population is Shias and 1/3 are Sunnis, but it shows that this is not hidden by other kind of passport, by other kind of contact. It's official, and it says not anymore Israel is something that you don't have to talk about it outside. You can talk about it outside. You can have with them the context, and I think it's a backwind to those countries, and I think that it strengthens, as I say, the way that our area is a lot of threat from Iran that is doing it without stopping. Even today, with the sanctions of the United States and other countries, they continue to move the Shias wing in Iraq, in Syria, controlling Lebanon also by Hezbollah as a proxy. It means that those countries, the Sunnis, are looking to improve the economy, the life of the population, the average civil life of people, and try to bring new opportunities for security and to prevent from the threat to go on. I mean, continue to develop nuclear weapon systems, continue to move by force, to spend billions of dollars to such terror organization inside Iraq, inside Syria, inside Lebanon, and also to bring a message to the Iranian population that is very smart. We never look on the Iran as a population as an enemy, but it means that bring us opportunities to the Middle East. But on the end of the day, after will be the ceremony on the White House, and we are going to immediately to Rosh Hashanah, I was also asked what I will say to my colleague on the Palestinian side, for example, in the West Bank, because we are living with them. And we should not forget them. We should not forget.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Eitan. But before we touch on the Palestinians, I just have a quick question for you, and then we'll dive into the Palestinian arena, which I think is also very important. First of all, as far as the Gulf states, we all know this could not have happened without the blessing of Saudi Arabia. What do you expect? What are the chances, the prospects of other Arab countries jumping on the peace wagon before November? And by this, I mean the Sudan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, anybody else. Do you think there is such a chance?
Yes, I believe that this kind of wing will get, first of all, the engine of the United States foreign policy. And this is a very important operator. I think that the fact that the United States, compared to the past, didn't left its interest in the Middle East, because we were in the last 10 years in a very sensitive moments, even with the President Obama and also with President Trump when he declared to leave Syria. The American flag is a flag that signals. Doesn't matter for me who is behind it. I mean that it signals a democratic life, it signals peace, and it signals way of life. And in the Middle East, while the power has a lot of such impact about what's going, I think that on one end, the policy of the United States as the main operator, as I say, for bringing this success, but secondly, it's like a wall to the bad organization or the bad kind of thoughts that will try to break it. And Shahar believing they will try to break it. And another thing, the two fingers now, Bahrain and the UAE, that Israel will be present them. I spoke about civil meanings, but do you think that the Iranian will not calculate, hey, what the Israelis can do there from intelligence or other kind of things? I'm not saying that we are going to do it, but I think that even the thoughts bring another light to this area, the country that create a border with Israel in the Golan Heights, that plan to bring our life to such a threat every day, has to calculate its step today. So I believe that this block of countries with Saudi Arabia, and the main surprise, and you know, never be surprised in the Middle East, look about Qatar. Qatar is a very radical country that chose for years to be the sponsor of radical terror movements like Hamas. They are the umbrella for the Muslim Brothers that are illegal in Egypt and already shows the problem they create in each place. They are not know to use democracy as a democracy. They used to know only the tools of democratic in order to get in power. So Qatar now is isolated around it with Saudi Arabia, with their neighbors, Bahrain, with their neighbor far away a little bit from the UAE and others, and the kind of context that Israel has with Oman. It means that Qatar already, I feel it from my experience, that it is trying to balance its policy even with Hamas. They are not doing it to Egypt. Egypt is not getting them to enter in Egypt because the damage, the memory of Egypt is very close to what has been there. Now they are coming to Israel. If Qatar, as the main sponsor to Hamas, as one of the sponsors to such organizations of the Muslim Brothers, will also calculate its way and will take some steps back towards such kind of activities, I think it will be the main sign of the flag. But before Qatar already under, I think, a way of moving to the middle of the part, and I'm not trust them yet, but if you are looking about countries like Morocco, Tunisia, and other in the north part of Africa, I believe that I will not be surprised if one of them will be the game changer to open it to other countries. And I would like to add another thing. Israel is the major strong country, as my former Minister of Defense used to tell me, Four Eyes Ehud Barak, around you 1,500 kilometers, you should stay the strong country in the Middle East, because with the other end, you can make peace. But on the other side of us, on the west side, Israel has become a very important country for the energy to our region, with all the gas foundation in the Mediterranean water. And when you are looking the needs of energy to those Arab countries together in the north part of Africa, all over, we can be together a very strong station to give the energy that is needed for those countries to develop.
The entire region. For the entire
we can
region.
supply technology, but again, the threats around Israel didn't disappear. They are still with us. We are still managed with them. I mean, the second circle around Israel is under a great change. The first circle around Israel has the same problem that we are facing now.
Eitan, let's talk about the first circle. And you mentioned the Palestinians before. How does this work for them? And we also heard one of the Oslo Accord veterans and described as Mahmoud Abbas' advisor, Nabil Shaath, who was talking openly about the third intifada. How does this all work for them? Where do the Palestinians fit in? And maybe a few words about Hamas in Gaza.
Yes, of course, Shahar. You have to divide between the PA in the West Bank, while they have more than 2.5 million people are living in this autonomy, and between Gaza that a little bit more than 2 million people are living under terror organization that belong to the Muslim Brothers. Two entities hating each other, will never be between them a bridge, even they are trying now to signal it. The hate and the suspicions are more than anything else. While you are looking about the PA, I think that Mahmoud Abbas is under a great pressure because its policy that was like without any kind of flexibility to change and to return, has to calculate his way to return to the negotiation. I think he is waiting for the situation of after the election in the States, and under any kind of new president in the United States or Trump will continue with this kind of policy. I believe that Abu Mazen will have to be and to tell himself, I cannot be on my way. The world is changed. The area is changed. He has to sit with us, and I know them very well. So such statements by Saib Arikat or by Nabil Shah is only a sign for the confusion that they are inside it. If I would, and I'm talking with them, if I would suggest them, I would tell them, guys, and I'm talking with them once in 1 or 2, 3 weeks sometimes, because I keep the context, and I told them, you should create an open relations with the United States. What Trump did with his plan is only giving you the opportunity not to come to negotiation, and as it was many times in the past, to leave it under kind of condition to Israel. The condition that you made for Israel as a condition to make a peace agreement are not exist anymore, because the Arab countries recognized Israel. I believe they support them and I accept them, but they support them in a way that understand you should make with us agreement under the reality of today, of tomorrow, and the future. And what does it mean? It means, first of all, invest of economy. Listen, Shahar, the majority of the population in the West Bank are voting in their legs. With all the developments, you don't see any kind of escalation in the West Bank. You don't see any kind of increasing in terror, few individuals that continues. And I think that the average civilian in the West Bank under the PA understand few things. First, that he has to fight the corona like us. Second, that he has the best economy life that he had since, I believe, the last 20, 30 years. If we compare it to the life of averages that a civilian living in Jordan, in Syria, in Egypt, even in Lebanon, he knows to understand that the economy that he has is much more better. It doesn't mean that he left his dream for a state, but I know for sure that he has priorities. First of all, we have to take the timetable to live together, hand by hand, and because the Palestinians cannot live without Israel, they use our airport, they use our ports in the sea, they got from us a lot of the, most of their economy based of import from Israel. They can do it from the Gulf countries as well, but they have to be a reality to understand, not to make any kind of conditions. First, you have to recognize Jerusalem.
Eitan, do you expect them to change, or do you think that Mahmoud Abbas needs to be replaced for something to happen?
Mahmoud Abbas will not be the leader that is in legacy, will be written that he give up the demand for return. He will not be the leader that said, I understand that Jerusalem, and also Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel, and we will create another country. But I think that some of the people around him understand it very well, and I know them. So it's a process like everything, and it will take time. So if I can advise them, first of all, in this time, strengthen your economy, promise your leadership for the future, because when we are talking every night, Mahmoud Abbas is continue to arrest Hamas people that are making any kind of, let's say, activities in order to replace his regime. And Hamas' dream is to be the PLO chairman, Ania and the others. And he knows it very well. So if Mahmoud Abbas, he will not be the one who will, in legacy, it will be written, let's hope that he will be the one that in his legacy will be that he built the ground in economy and others for the future of the new generation that it will, in my opinion, for the time we live, between 3 to 5 years.
Eitan, do you see a chance? I mean, I understand from what you're saying that much of a reconciliation or Palestinian unity is not to be expected, even under the circumstances. But do you see a chance of the Palestinian Authority taking over Gaza, or alternatively Hamas taking over the West Bank? Any of these scenarios in the near future?
Shahar, maybe it's the time to say something about Gaza. Hamas, it's a terror organization. It will stay a terror organization. It will never recognize Israel as a state, but they worked very hard in order to strengthen their entity in Gaza. Sinwar, their leader, is a very smart guy. He's making for the last 3.5 years a clever strategic. He will not give it up very soon. He's a strategic today. First of all, he's very afraid from the corona. The corona in Gaza, it means if it succeeds to break a lot number of population that will be died from it, it's risk his entity for the future. So he did his best in order to keep Gaza without it. Even, I said it before, today we have a special opportunity to create something like a ceasefire with Hamas for something like between 1 year to 5 years. And what we will give it for it is only by economy. We have to be very careful and to understand that it's a red line. But when you open a new economy, it's opportunity like happened in the West Bank. I'm not believe on it, but I don't see Hamas will not invite the PA to return to Gaza. Maybe we will have to live with two entities, which one, we have to be more flexibility, for more supporting, with the second, more give and take. And don't forget the word take. We have to demand the returning of the bodies of our 2 soldiers. We have to demand return of 2 illegal prisoners. We have not to give any a guy from Gaza to enter to Israel to work without this kind of condition. And we have to demand for this making a new economy in Gaza, energy, electricity, water, and others. We have to demand that the money for it will be instead of the money on disarm the Hamas murder industry and rockets and others. This is something that we have to work on it, not alone. We have a partnership with Egypt. We have also understanding of Qatar, and with the new developing of the Middle East, Hamas understand it very well and will be more careful. So this is not the empty glass, but the full half of glass with Hamas.
Amen, amen, and amen, Eitan. I'd like to thank you so much.
We didn't speak about the Lebanon and Syria.
Yeah, we're going to have to save that for the next time, where we hope to see you very soon, Eitan, for your words have been extremely wisening in this quagmire of the Middle East. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you.
Also a pleasure for me, Shahar, and I wish you and all the Jewish all over the world for a new year. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Eitan. The future holds much promise. Would like to thank you for enlightening us on these important and life-changing developments in the region and beyond. We're about to welcome the Jewish New Year. It's a true gift to celebrate its coming with the creation of new relationships out in the open, just like Eitan said, between Israel and other Arab nations, to realize the vision of peace of the prophets of Israel, and to hope for a better year than the one we are having at the moment. Every year we pray at this time that may this year and its troubles soon be over, and new one begins with its blessings, this year more than ever. And to all I say, stay safe and stay healthy. I'd like to thank our director, Sloan Copeland, JBS's managing director, Dara Golob, our technical manager, Michael Paley, transmission manager, John McDevitt, and to the producer of In the News, Carol Lilienthal. For JBS, I'm Shahar Azani. Until next year, Shana Tova Umetuka, and see you all soon.